Alright, so as promised, I'm back with another video going over my initial thoughts and overall expectations for the new Netflix live-action Cowboy Bebop. So they just finished filming the first season, and they do plan on making multiple seasons going forward, which does make me happy. And it's a good thing I decided to make this video, because you can expect to see a trailer or more information regarding the project very, very soon. And that actually makes me a little bit nervous, because currently I don't have Netflix, so I gotta rebuy my subscription or whatever to make sure I'm like first in line for this party, you know what I'm saying? Because as soon as this drops, I am 100% binging this. And you already know I'm gonna be making a review of the series, going over everything in detail, what I think they did right, wrong, etc. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself because the series has not dropped yet. I'm assuming there's a lot of post-production that needs to be undergone, so there is still time before this show does hit the streaming platform. But while we're waiting, however, I can go ahead and give you guys a little bit of insight on my thoughts. Being in the film industry and also being an avid anime lover, I think I've got an interesting perspective on things. So let's dive into it, shall we? One thing I've always thought that was very interesting about Cowboy Bebop is the fact that not only is it episodic, but it's also something that America has, kind of revolutionized as being one of the first anime to be beloved by us Americans and not so much the Japanese. One of the first things I remember hearing about Cowboy Bebop upon being recommended to it is the fact that Japan doesn't necessarily like or even know about Cowboy Bebop. And in truth, it's Americans that have held Cowboy Bebop to such high standards and given it such praise to classify it as a legend, in the anime history, right? Like, Cowboy Bebop is a classic, it's a legend, it's a timeless show, right? And the reason many people would have that opinion is primarily because of the praise it got from America. I don't even know if Japan really knows of Cowboy Bebop. I'm sure they have to know somewhat, but like the popularity of Cowboy Bebop, the classic jazzy intro, everything that we recognize, the praise, the hype surrounding it, everything that has contributed to the legacy and the overall quality reputation that Cowboy Bebop has managed to maintain is all mostly from America. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think that that's great. And in fact, I think it makes it a better reason as to why it should get a live action adaptation from Hollywood or from America, or a live action adaptation that's not strictly made in Japan, right? The fact that Cowboy Bebop's importance is mainly related to America and, the United States, I feel like that kind of sets an interesting pedestal as to whether or not we screw this up. Because if you think about it, it's an anime live action. But in reality, I think us Americans are more concerned and will feel more hurt if we do the series wrong, whereas Japan probably won't even care. So it's a very interesting dynamic and relation to have with an anime. And I think that's a good thing, because hopefully that will tone down the amount of people that want to bandwagon on this sort of mindset that Americans whitewash everything and we are whitewashing, anime and Japanese culture, when in reality, that's not necessarily the case. And in most instances, the changes that are made to the story of the franchise are primarily due to the fact that live action and filmmaking require those changes for the project to exist. Another interesting thing that separates Cowboy Bebop from being any other anime, and that makes it very interesting as to why it's being adapted into a live action, is the fact that Cowboy Bebop is very episodic, right? There are, of course, a few storylines that follow the narrative and go through multiple episodes, but for the most part, Cowboy Bebop is episodic, so each episode has its own story. And like stated in the article that I made a video about earlier, these episodes from Netflix are gonna be an hour long, so that's already more than double the episodes that we were getting in the original anime. So not only is there no need to worry about if they're gonna follow certain episodes and certain storylines faithfully, but also we're gonna get more time for each episode. So that means that there's potential for possibly expanding on certain storylines and making things even more fleshed out than they were before. But yeah, the main reason this is a good thing is simply because of the fact that we don't have to worry about having all these people go, oh, they ruined the series, they didn't follow it straight to the T, yada yada yada. When adapting a series like Cowboy Bebop, there really isn't that much story detail that you have to pay attention to. You know what I mean? It's very kind of free roam and open. And I think that makes it an even better choice for adapting into an anime live action. I'm not really sure if they're gonna try and follow episodes from the anime to the T, or if they're gonna go for something new or their own kind of original take on the series. In my personal opinion, I think they're gonna kind of blend both, right? They'll probably take elements from the anime storyline and then from there run with it, blending in some of their own original aspects and then doing their own thing, which I think is great because not only is everyone in the same boat, whereas we're not expecting things to follow a certain story arc or be restricted to certain expectations from the series. We're all kind of waiting to see what happens. You know, we're gonna get something new, and that's what's exciting to me because, you know, I'm a Cowboy Bebop fan. I love the series, I love the show, and I can't wait to see what they do with it. But I'm also not expecting it to be exactly like how it is in the anime, and for once I can say that that's a good thing, because now that they're in live action, there's a lot of different things that they can do, and I want to see them do that. You know, I don't really want them to feel restricted to the anime's iteration, but at the same time, of course, I still want them to stay true to the series and what we all know and love. It's just refreshing to see a series adapted that doesn't necessarily have so many restrictions as to what has to happen, and, you know, story-wise, oh, this has to happen, or else the series isn't the same. Whereas Cowboy Bebop has always been episodic, open-ended, and it's mainly all about the crew, you know, the adventures of this ragtag team. And whatever they do, as long as they're intact, it's still Cowboy Bebop. Okay, so now I'm gonna go over each of the actors and actresses that have been casted and talk about their roles and give my overall thoughts on if I think they're a good fit for the role or not. And then afterwards, I'm gonna see if there's anything else in the article that I wanna give special mention to, any specific details, or anything to speculate that we can talk about. Alright, so starting off with John Cho as Spike Spiegel, they announced this really early on, and I think the fact that they were so prepared to make such a big announcement about casting John Cho kind of says a lot about how he will fit the role. I don't think they were just happy to announce it just because he's Asian American. I talked a little bit about this in my top 5 biggest challenges for making an anime live action video, where basically I said, you know, I'm not as concerned with race accuracy as I am with, you know, if the actor or actress can play the role well, right? Like, my main concern is who can play the role the best. And I think that that's any director's or producer's concern when casting. However, it is also nice to see filmmakers address, you know, something that the fans and a lot of people have been asking for, which is, you know, Asian American roles and actors being casted for these anime live action adaptations. So it is nice to see that addressed, and I do think he's a good fit for the time being. I really can't wait to see what he does and what he brings to the table as Spike Spiegel. Alright, so next up we've got Mustafa Shakir as Jet. Now, the only insight I can really give on this guy is that he played a character in the Luke Cage Netflix TV show, which I haven't seen much of Luke Cage personally. I'm more of a Jessica Jones fan, but that's a different video. Anyway, this guy from looks alone, I can already see the facial feature resemblance. You know, he's got that really edge, gruffy kind of look to him, especially when you see pictures of him with the beard. I can definitely see him pulling off a Jet, for sure. I would have to hear his voice to know more of his acting range, but from looks alone, I can already tell he looks like a pretty good fit. I wonder how people are gonna feel about him being black, but personally, I think if we actually just look at personality, like, Jet has always been a brother. I mean, maybe not skin tone wise, but, you know, definitely in the inside, you know. And if you think about it, he does have those robotic features on him, right? So maybe they could use that as a way to play with, you know, his backstory. I don't know, we'll see. But so far, I've got good impressions of this guy. Alright, so Daniela Pineda as Faye Valentine. All I can say is, Oh yeah. No, but in all seriousness, I did take a look at her Instagram just to get a closer look at the news revealing that the first season was done being filmed. And upon looking at her page, she seems to genuinely care for the role and like the character, while also kind of having a sense of, the anime culture, the franchise, meme culture, everything kind of going on with the world. And she just seems like a genuinely awesome and cool person, which makes me excited because truthfully, I think that she's gonna bring something to Faye Valentine that's really gonna revive the character and immortalize her in cinema. I just really hope that they nail her look in terms of the production design. I really want to see the purple hair and the yellow outfit because I feel like that's very iconic to her, and I would love to see that iconic look translated into live action and become an iconic look for cinema as well. If anything, as an anime and as a Cowboy Bebop fan, that's the one thing I don't want them to screw up or change from the anime. I want them to keep that look, if anything. Because out of everything that stands out to me at Cowboy Bebop, the two things I think that really stick with me are that outfit on Faye Valentine, and of course, the jazzy, iconic introduction. Alright, so next up we've got Alex Hassel playing Vicious, and from the looks of this guy, I actually think he's a pretty good fit. I think just from looking at a few pictures of him, because I haven't personally seen him in anything else, but from the few pictures that I've seen, he looks like he has a pretty wide range. Like I could see him playing, a very happy, energetic, goofy kind of vibe character, but I could also see him playing a dark, depressing kind of vibe. So I think that that's, pretty good, especially for Vicious, right? Vicious is more of a serious, badass kind of character. He seems like he has the range to pull it off. And if anything, even if I can't see him pulling it off right away, I definitely think he has the range to pull off a good Vicious. So yeah, I just hope they nail the look down with his long silver hair, and that they keep the most iconic, relatable line of all time: "There is nothing in this world to believe in." Ooh! Yeah, I'm excited, but I am genuinely curious and excited to see what he brings to the table as Vicious. Alright, so lastly on this list of the leading roles, we've got Elena Sateen playing Julia. And to be honest, just looking at some of the pictures of her, I think she'll be fine. I think she's a great choice. Personally, I don't think it would be too hard to portray Julia's character. I mean, she does have a bit of mystique to her, and she is, a pretty cool character, but I don't think she's as important to the series as the rest of the cast. And I think that unless they tend to bring more importance to her character or have her more involved in the story for this Netflix adaptation, that overall, she has a pretty one-sided linear story, being the main woman of Spike's past, right? And I think that in terms of just the looks, she seems like she could play the role pretty well. And looking at some of her other movies, she also kind of has experience in being a badass, which is pretty cool because, Julia definitely does have those sides of her, right? If she's a woman that, catches Spike's heart, of course she's gonna be, somewhat of a badass, somewhat of a dangerous chick, right? So that's pretty cool. So I think, yeah, she's a pretty good choice. There's really not much else I have to say about that. So excited to see what she brings to the table as well. So despite all the casting choices looking, pretty positive, looking pretty solid for the most part, there is one major concern that is really starting to scare me. And that's the fact that there's no Ed currently casted. There is no Edward casted on this list. Does that mean they're taking Ed from the series completely? And if so, that's huge. That could spark the war between, people saying they ruined this franchise, they ruined it from the anime if there's no Ed, And to be honest, I can kind of see why they might not want to cast Ed or even try to portray Ed's character in the story, because it might be, a little weird, right? Me personally, I've never really been a fan of seeing kids act and seeing, children on the screen, just because there's always that weird kind of barrier between them and acting completely true to what would happen if this were, real life, right? I always tend to see, oh, this kid, he did something to where you could obviously tell the director made him do this, or he had to do this because he can't act, right? And I'm not saying it's every kid, I'm just saying a lot of kids tend to expose that in the film, and it throws me off. You see this most especially with sitcoms and stuff where the acting isn't as important, But like, even when it is, it's just, you know, it's just, I can't. It seems like maybe they tried to cut Ed to avoid all of that, avoid any kind of controversy that there would have been. And it seems like they just wanted to focus on the tone and the story for this project, you know. And they still kind of have that diversity by casting Jet as a black guy, but I don't know. I personally, even though I'm not a big fan of having kids on the screen, when it comes to, you know, these big budget movies or TV shows, I really would like to see Ed in the series. I think that the crew really isn't complete without Edward. I don't know, it is gonna be kind of weird without having Ed on the screen. And I know that Edward comes later on in the series, so maybe they're saving her for season 2. That's definitely a possibility, but it is kind of strange because, you know, we're getting into Spike's past with Vicious and Julia, so I don't know. I really don't know. I just hope that we see Ed at some point. Okay, so the only thing I really want to mention aside from the cast is the fact that, again, I just want to reinstate, Shinichiro Watanabe, the original anime's director, is serving as consultant for the project. And this is something that is, you know, really great to hear, because, you know, we've got not only the Cowboy Bebop live action having its own original anime team be a part of working on this live action film, television series, but we've also got the One Piece live action being produced. And it's funny because, you know, this Cowboy Bebop project is sharing producers with the One Piece live action project. We've already gotten the news that, you know, Eiichiro Oda, the creator of One Piece, is going to be heavily involved as a consultant for that project. So it's just really great to hear that, you know, the creators of the teams of, you know, these original franchises and these original animes and series are going to be involved with the process of making these anime live actions, because anime live action has not found its stride yet. And, you know, it's something that, again, we are kind of waiting for them to nail the formula to the point where, like Marvel movies, they can kind of generally please everyone, and we don't have to worry about, oh, a new anime live action gets announced, it's gonna be terrible. Like, no. We can actually be hopeful and be excited like we should be. It's also great to hear because once this show comes out on Netflix, you can have all the people saying, oh my god, you know, it's terrible, they ruined the series, they ruined the original creator's vision. And it's like, no, dude, the original creator was literally right there. Like, this is partly his vision. He helped make this shit, you know? So that kind of shuts up all those people right then and there, which is great. I think that's about all I really had to say for this one. Do you agree with what I had to say? Let me know in the comments below. Leave a like on the video, it helps me out a ton. And please subscribe if you haven't already to stay tuned for more anime live action content. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next video.